Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today we are back to work on our unreal looking guitar kit here from Precision Guitar Kits. In today's video, we're going to check everything we need to on the neck and get it glued in place. We don't have our bridge yet, but that's just fine. Our bridge will have lots of adjustability, so I'm not too worried about that, but we will need to check and make sure that the alignment makes sense on this thing. We're also going to check that there are no low frets. I'm really hoping there aren't. I don't think there are going to be. All of the fret ends on this are beautifully rounded. Everything's wonderfully polished. It's super shiny. And so as long as there are no low frets, all the crowning looks good. There's nothing I need to do on this. That's usually a big part of putting together a kit. But Precision Guitar Kits seems to do all of that for you. So if you're willing to put out the extra money for them and you don't want to do that work yourself, great option and just beautiful. I mean, I got to choose the neck wood, my Angove fretboard. I got to choose the no inlays, all of that, the aluminum side dots. I'm so happy with this thing. Anyway, we're going to check that out, make sure everything looks good, and then we're going to go ahead and get the neck glued in. Let's get to it. All right, so the plan for this guy is fairly straightforward. Most of the parts and stuff that I'm going to use are from Solo as usual, as are the tools. This I was going to put into my neck rest from Solo Music Gear, of course, as I usually would, but because it's an angled headstock and I don't do a lot of those, that's not going to work. It'll make contact. So I'm going to use I'm just using everybody's stuff here. I'm going to use my Maximum Guitar Works radius block, put this on top of it, and then I can work with it. And that's the plan. So moving on from there, we need to check that all our frets are good. We'll do that using a typical fret rocker. You can get these anywhere. You can get them from Philadelphia Luthier. You can get them from Skyscraper Guitars. That's the one I have, which is probably my favorite. But Solo Music Gear also has them. Crimson Guitars has them. They're great. And if you don't know how to use one of these, it's pretty straightforward. It's got different size sections to reach over 3 frets at a time. So use the small section over here, for example, bigger section, as you get to areas where the frets are spaced more evenly. And you just run them along and try and rock them. And if they start clicking, then you've got a low fret, right? So if this starts clicking, then either the first or third fret is low. I can check by moving over here. And if the third fret is low, it won't do anything. So we're just going to check all of these. You know what, first things first, you're supposed to make sure that the fretboard is flat, which it looks like it is, but we might need a truss rod adjustment. So just before I'm doing this in the wrong order, before we do that, let's use a notch straight edge and check that. So there we go. Yeah, we're good. Fretboard's flat. So continuing where we left off here, these tools from Skyscraper Guitars are just awesome. Precisely milled, coated so that you can see what you're doing. Well, no surprise there. They're perfect. All right, that saves me some time. So now what I'm going to do is basically a test fit. I'm going to run this off the edge of my bench here so that I don't hit the neck on anything or hit the end of the headstock. Now this is tight, okay, so it barely fits, which means we're not going to be able to use much glue when we glue it up, but that's just fine. We won't need much. You can't slide it in that way because it's angled, so it has to come in through the top. Probably don't even need clamps to glue this in. It's in there so tight. But anyway, that's what we end up with. So what we're going to do is run a straight edge along the edge of the fretboard and make sure that we've got some clearance out here. What we don't want is a situation where you run your strings from the neck and they contact these frets on the way to the bridge. And we also don't want a flat thing because we need room for a tune-o-matic here. So I'll pull out a tune-o-matic bridge as a test and just kind of sit it on top of there and we'll check that. Okay, apparently I just lost a bunch of footage, so let's try this again. Gonna get this in here and show you guys what I just did in terms of testing. it was all perfect. Anyway, we'll get that in. So what I do here to make sure everything is right, I'm just taking an old Tune-O-Matic. I've got a bunch of these old ones because I've upgraded them. This is one of the inexpensive ones. This isn't one I'm actually using on this guitar. But anyway, I throw that down there, and then I take a nice long straight edge. For this, it's just going to be my meter stick because it's long enough. And what I want to see here is I want to see a little bit of clearance. If I run this down the frets, I want to see a little bit of clearance over the saddles, just a touch. Because remember, we don't have a nut on here yet. So what we would do as a different test is put the nut on, put the pegs in, load this up, and see how much clearance we have over the frets after. But it amounts to the same thing because the nut's going to go on and raise this up a little bit. These are going to go on the pegs, and that's going to get raised up a little bit. And so if we just run it along the frets, we have about an 1/8 inch of clearance over there. So we'll have a little bit more when the nut goes in, and then this will go up on the pegs and meet the straight line, which will be the strings, and that's going to be perfect. No surprise there. I feel like I rushed through that, but really there's just nothing to do. This is already set up great. It's perfect. The angle's good. This is going to be the easiest kit guitar build I've ever done, probably. So that looks good. We'll get this off of here. I don't want to finish any of the rest of this yet. What I want to do first is glue the neck in because I don't want to have clamps against a finished surface on the back. So I got the die done because I didn't want to accidentally die the sides of the board. That's all good. Now this can get glued in, and then we can start on our finishing work. The only other finishing work we have to do, this, you can bear with me here, this is a little tough to get out of here, but I'm getting better at it. The only other finishing work we have to do is on the headstock. And we'll just do it, dyeing work. And we'll just do that to meet or match the rest of this. So that'll be good. Hopefully I don't sound like I'm rushing through this. It's the second time I filmed it. And I've already checked all of this. It's all nice and smooth and ready for glue. So I don't even have to clean this up. I'm just going to get my clamps and my glue, and I'm going to get this glued up, and then we're going to have something that looks like a ready to finish guitar. Very exciting. Let's get after it. All right, so I've ended up just using the finger spreader method for glue on like the last 3 neck glue ups I did, and I was happy with all of them, so I'm just sticking with that. So I've got some glue here, and I'm going to get this spread around this area in a nice thin layer. You guys know the drill. This is just Type Bond Original. I'm going to get some on the sides of where my neck is getting glued in, but mostly the focal point, of course, is the bottom. And I'm starting with the body side because of the way that this is set up. It's a smooth transition. So it's tough for me to tell where exactly on the neck it goes. Not that tough, but I want to make sure that I'm not getting a bunch of excess coming out. I want a little bit, maybe a little bit of squeeze out, but not much. As little as I can get. I underestimated the amount of glue I would need there. So we don't want a bunch of excess in here, like I said, just a thin layer, which I find that the fingers are just fine for creating. Do a little bit up the sides. Try and keep the mess to one finger here. And a thin layer all the way through the bottom. Okay, I got a little extra in the corners there, that's fine. Trying to clean off excess as we go. And then a little bit of cleaning on me here to make sure that I don't get glue everywhere. I'll do a thin layer on here as well. Trying to move relatively quickly here. Although the open time on this glue is enough that it shouldn't be an issue. We'll get the rest of our glue on here and then get it clamped in. Again, thin layer. Don't go crazy with this. It'll bond better this way. Especially with a neck fit this tight. All right, so remember on this one we have to come in from the top. I'm actually going to do it from way over here to try to avoid getting a bunch of glue squeezing onto the top. You can see there's a little bit there. That's not bad. I'll be cleaning that up with a razor blade in a moment. Or with a paper towel if I can get it to come off that easily. So this is getting extremely snug very quickly because the joint was so tight and the glue causes a little bit of expansion. Got to be careful about that. Quick cleanup. Okay, make sure that joint looks good. Now we got to clamp quickly. So I've cleaned off this side of this board, made sure it's good. And that's what I'm going to use as my clamping block. Get that in place gently. There we go. Now I just got to figure out how to get rid of this glue. Haven't left myself a lot of room to work here. Okay, there's our glue up. I'll leave that for 24 hours and come back. All right, let's talk for a second about what's going on here. So we've got 2 clamps inside the neck pocket. We've got a radius block on the fretboard that matches the radius of the fretboard. That's keeping this clamped in. So the blocks in the neck pocket kind of would have started to lift the neck a little bit because of the way this is set up. And then this one clamps it back down, adds to the pressure, keeps the pressure even, and tightens up that neck joint, which is looking good. And I've cleaned the squeeze out off of it 4 times now, and we're still getting just a little bit. So everything there is as it should be as far as I'm concerned. We're gonna leave this for a day, and then I'm gonna take these clamps off. So that's it for this video. I think we're all set. We've got the neck glued in. This one is gonna come along pretty quickly, I think. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. And remember to subscribe so you can see how this build turns out. Thanks again. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.